Every day we meet, we take 2 minutes to sit in silent reflection, to remember those who have gone, and to remember those, oops, here we go. I didn't press the open. And this is for you at home too. For all these years, we have had, I'm hearing an echo. How do I do this? Oh, okay. Now, I'll try it again. This gets to be a very meditative practice. Every Sunday, we take 2 minutes to reflect in silent reflection on people who have gone and people who have helped bring us here, on our various connections, on the people who've supported us and the people whom we support. And so let's do that. Let's take 2 minutes and reflect back on those we've known and those for whom we live and do what we do. Thank you. I was really moved by Kelly's rendition of America the Beautiful. It's a song we all know, and it's a song that has so much resonance for us. And I think people's reaction to 9/11 also revived and aroused the sense of nationality, nationhood, community for so many of us. Yesterday, of course, as we all know, was the 20th anniversary of that event. I don't know about you, does it feel like 20 years? I think it feels like 20 years. I think it's probably more. It feels like half a century to me. It seems so long ago. I was in my Midtown office and I saw the buildings fall from our window. So in a sense, those who saw it on television and those who saw it for real all experienced this common injury. To reflect on the things that happened in this new century that already seems old. You know, the Great Recession of 2008, the Me Too movement, Donald Trump, political divisions in the country that never existed in our memories, the geopolitical realignment of the world with emergent China. I mean, where did they come from? Global climate change, perhaps reaching a tipping point, and of course, the pandemic that has changed all our lives. Big things happened in these last 20 years. The war on terrorism was another big thing. And the end of the war in Afghanistan kind of asked us to reflect on how that war on terrorism really changed America, what it really did to our society, and how we might be able to, I guess, recover from it. It brought the Patriot Act, it brought the surveillance state, and it brought the concept of war without end, just ongoing war. Just think of this, in the last 3 years, just in the last 3 years, under the radar, the US was engaged in counterterrorism activities in 85 countries all around the world. Now, that's according to the Brown University Costs of War Project, trying to keep a tab on what is actually going on and what the costs are. The US was involved in direct combat, directly or through proxies, in 12 countries in those 3 years, including Iraq, Kenya, Mali, Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and Afghanistan, and carried out drone strikes in 7 countries: Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. Well, when we talk about forever wars, we do have to acknowledge that the US has been at the forefront of conflict continually since World War II. There are the big wars like Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And there are the small conflicts, the local conflicts like those within Nicaragua, Colombia, Grenada. Look at the nature of what we're doing. What is our goal and what is our purpose? Are we spreading values that we're proud of? Is the cost of all of these projects appropriate? Costs to us and costs to the local populations. Are we doing them any favors? Or the values that we tout simply cover for other underlying goals that are more selfish? Our policies can be directed towards a goal of peace. And to do that, we have to recognize that peace is more than a value or a far-off aspiration. Peace is a practice. It's a way of going about in the world. Peace is a way of life. There may be times when we cannot impose our will on everyone. Our liberal post-Enlightenment values are simply not everybody's answer. We have the view that we've achieved an apotheosis of wisdom, that others really should follow our way of life, and which is from their perspective, a money-based consumerism, which is particularly Western. The experience in Afghanistan and many other venues can teach us that not everyone is really ready, eager, or even willing to assume the middle-class values of our world. And as to method, there could be more gained by leading by example and less by aerial bombardment. We would do well to make major changes in the way we perceive the world and make judgments about what is right and what is necessary. How do we appeal to our ethical sense to guide us in what is a necessary intervention and what amounts to interference? What is a legitimate value, even though different from our own, perhaps indigenous and traditional, as opposed to what is truly oppressive and criminal? In Afghanistan, we've seen the self-styled religious extremists, the Taliban, enforce rules and practices that are, to us, utterly shocking, stupefying to our sensibilities and understanding of how the world should work. And we fear today that they're simply going to resume those practices. However, we have to acknowledge that they did have a lot of public support in their quick return to power once the American engagement waned. Does this tell us something? Our challenge is to decide if we really need to send drones or bombs that kill civilians in order to show them that there is a better way to live. War may be diplomacy by other means, as Karl von Clausewitz once wrote, but not all war is diplomacy. And war does not need to be the primary go-to tool in the diplomatic toolbox. Peace is a strategy, a methodology, as well as a practice. This summer, the American Ethical Union made a resolution at its annual assembly to commit our movement to a culture of peace, and to that end, to encourage us in the societies and our members to write to representatives in Congress to support a bill, H.R. 1111, which is designed to establish a federal department of peace building. Peace as a practice, as a purposeful activity with studies, options, and expertise entails cultural understanding, communication, incorporating learning as well as teaching, not just disseminating our cultural values, but outreach to understand others. It requires outreach to understand the economic forces that have oppressed people, as well as those that have uplifted them, and to encourage the mobilization, not of troops, but of workers, economic players, in order to balance competing parochial needs. We have so much to offer the people of the world, but we are also very much part of this world. We're not on a separate mesa living in a different atmosphere. We too have problems maintaining our democracy. We too have citizens who take democracy for granted, or who believe a short-term advantage in politics is worth the cost of undermining the whole system. We have warlords of our own and wealth disparities that rival anywhere on earth. We're not necessarily in a position to tell everyone else how to run their lives. But we have also learned many things as our society and our culture progressed over the centuries. The European Enlightenment also had some very good ideas. In ethical culture, we say that it is our duty, our chosen role, to bring ethics to our relationships, including our families, our work, and the public square. Felix Adler, the founder of ethical culture, used it as a verb. We're to ethicize our communities and our world. The expressions he used to capture this ideal were, of course, deed before creed and elicit the best of others and thereby in yourself. The first expression, deed before creed, simply says that no matter how you got here, no matter what your religious beliefs, there are some universal values that we do indeed share, and we can join in our efforts in undertaking concrete things, concrete deeds to make the world a better place. We can alleviate suffering. We can improve the lives of people everywhere. As he wrote, diversity in the creed, unanimity in the deed. Their differences don't really matter. We know we need to feed the hungry and shelter the homeless. But it was not just material well-being that Adler sought to achieve. Ethical culture began in the age of reform and was deeply engaged in the reform movements of its earliest days. Public health, free education, child labor, the labor movement in general. For Adler, ethical culture was not organized as a social service organization, although it did immediately undertake these innovative and ambitious social service projects. These projects were the expression of people striving towards ethicizing their community and for cultivating their own personal understanding of moral rectitude and purpose. Adler was most concerned with the ethical growth of the individual. He explained that our duty was to improve ourselves and become better, more effective ethical actors. That ethicality was itself enriching, uplifting, and brought us to a kind of perfection. It was a goal of personal transformation. So how does one strive in this way? To Adler was by reaching out to help others, by eliciting the best in others, and thereby eliciting the best in oneself. Now, there are several formulations of that statement. one goes, so act as to elicit the latent spiritual possibilities in others and thereby in yourself. That would mean to help others realize their own potential, what is genuine for them. And that act of grace elicits the best of yourself. Your best self will emerge. Because reaching out like that, eliciting the best in others, is not an act of charity. It's a spiritual practice. To be the one who can elicit the best in others is the highest we can be. It's the most exalted we can be. It is to be the teacher, the coach, the peacemaker, the true friend. It does not mean to indoctrinate or convince others to change or to change the other, but rather to elicit from the other their own spirit, their own excellence, their own authenticity, their own highest potential. So it should be with personal relations within the family, the workplace, and I might say even in international relations. One may legitimately ask, how does one answer an attack that kills 3,000 people? With a strategy to elicit the best? Aren't there situations that just call for retribution? Well, is that because some universal scorecard of justice requires a response of equal measure? Is it because each tit calls for attack? Is it because the leaders must appear resolute and strong to maintain their positions? We must be engaged, but must we default to the military as the lead agency that represents America? Martin Luther King explained, hate does not drive out hate. Only love can do that. This fundamental principle of nonviolent opposition is that by pursuing violence, the result is simply continuously more violence. 20 years of nation building through the methods of war. So how well did that work? It resulted in the devastation of the Afghan landscape, and the Taliban are still there. Other different methods need to be tried to help that country emerge and join our century. There are so many ways that help, influence, engagement can be channeled, and they need not all involve explosive ordnance. Communication is still possible, even when strange juntas seize power. Adler wrote, morality is the expression of our highest nature. Morality is not a matter of convenience. It is not for superficial appearances. Morality is not determined by a committee, nor does morality simply give us pleasure. There's a personal voice that speaks to us about the ultimate reality of things and the values of things. When we work for morality, we add to the moral good in our social universe. Reverence and awe in the presence of the moral law is the beginning of true religion. Unquote. So join with me on this journey of exploration to find the ethical way, to learn about the people and the forces around us that impact our lives, and let's discover the ways by which we can bring out the best in others, in different landscapes, in different relations, and of course, to bring out the best in ourselves. This year, we will have platform presentations, discussions that will explore themes that include not only the struggles of society and the opportunities to make change and growth, but also our own personal journeys, our efforts and our progress as we have striven to do our best, and how we seek to learn what more we can do. We're confident that together we can help build a world that works for the best of all. Thank you.